There you go. It, sh
Slideshow mode.
it should be set up for the share already.
Sharing. All right. Good evening, everyone. We return to our angel study this evening. Last time we talked about different the cherubim and the seraphim and how they actually are different from your regular run of the mill angel that would register in our cultural context and how we think of it. They're not the guys with wings floating around on clouds like they actually are do. They are a different type of heavenly one entirely, right? And because angels is not really the best word anymore for any of these types of beings, I'm going for it. I'm probably going to call them Elohim or shemayim
Hmm.
to add some more clarity to this text because they all fall under this big umbrella of Elohim, as we've discussed before in previous sessions.
Hmm.
Um, but it's just what exactly are the different categories of these Elohim and how they function in a larger context of creating a cosmological model where all of these different beings fit into, so we can actually have a visualization and build a worldview off of that.
So that begs a real quick question. Is it just that they're functionally different from one another, or are they also um, different in appearance, construction, um, so forth?
Well, yeah, because all these heavenly ones will have different jobs, of course,
Yeah.
and depending on how we view them in the greater cosmos depends on sort of like what how we can understand what they do. Because you could have the interpretation that these angels are just abstractions of nature that God just manipulates to exact His will,
Oh,
right?
right.
Yeah, because you could have that view, or they're how or they are different intangibles that God uses to interact with the material world as part of His being,
Well, you tell me
right?
if I'm getting ahead of you, but give me your take on the Merkabah, the heavenly throne vehicles, and the at least the cherubim that are a part of that. Um, so they have a function, but what about their form? And is there any other angelic or Elohim thing, creature, entity, spirit that is involved in that along with the cherubim?
That's an excellent question, Larry. Good one. So so the deal with the cherubim and seraphim is that they are very specific creatures. Now we read from Genesis that the cherubim is just there at the gate of Eden with a flaming sword, which is super metal, to make sure Adam and Eve don't come back in,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
But then once we get to Ezekiel, Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 10, it
Hmm.
has the form of a man with, cloven hooves like a cow, and then it's got the four faces and the six wings, and it stands guard by the throne, right?
Mm.
So the thing with the Merkava uh, is that you have specific heavenly beings that are associated with the Merkava. And for those of you that don't know, the Merkava is the Hebrew word describing Yahweh's divine chariot that you see in Isaiah 6, Ezekiel 1. Um, those are the best examples I can give you. But the idea is that, like, yeah, pulling from the ancient Near Eastern religious context, Yahweh has a divine chariot that he goes to and fro about material reality with, and that's where he rules from. Think of it like a mobile hotspot of royalty.
Right.
Right.
So to re-anchor it back to the presentation that you're doing, then it's both these the Elohim are both variant in uh, purpose, job, and form.
Yes. And
Okay.
yeah, and so far in the book, Heiser has not gotten to, because Heiser began the book by defining his terms
Hmm.
and where he gets it from, and he always uses the same five verses for literally everything, which is which just which is kind of annoying. It's just, can you use something else for once, please?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Well, we've
know,
expanded that list a bit, haven't we?
yeah, we've expanded on it, but especially you see the cherubim is guarding the throne, but they're not doing the job that the Ophanim are doing.
Hmm.
The wheel angels with the eyeballs, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're not. They are two separate, distinct beings doing different tasks, and then the seraphim are also different from the two of those, but are associated with the Merkabah, where they're flying around shouting, kadosh, kadosh, kadosh,
Yeah. Hmm.
around the throne, right?
Yeah.
And but then what of the angel that gives Ezekiel the scroll to eat,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Where does he fit in that whole council, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Was it a real hand, or was it being figurative, or was the hand attached to a different being to hand the book to him to eat? I don't know.
Hmm.
It answers a lot of questions because it's they just take it for granted that they're there,
Hmm.
not really defining a lot of these terms.
Indeed.
Is like we just take it for granted that the seraphim are there. We take it for granted that the Ophanim are there. We take it for, yeah, they just are there. Angels
Yeah.
just are there. They're not clearly defined like a Greek or a Roman would need them to be.
Yeah.
Because we got it, or especially the Greeks, like that study you did on your substance metaphysics. Also go to Liberty Lover Substack to read more from Larry Ricks about substance metaphysics. Um,
Thank you.
it's I know we can't do this like a Greek, but just on basic inquiry, it's like, what is it?
Hmm.
Right? What is an Elohim? What is a shemayim? What is a cherubim? Right? And the thing is, the continuity could have changed based off of theological speculation, or in the context of a divine revelation.
Mm.
We
Mm.
or it gets called special revelation in systematic theologies, to speak theologies.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's yeah, yeah, because cherubims in Genesis, we don't really know what they look like, but then because of the special revelation given to Ezekiel, we now know what they look like, and we just have to trust him that that's what they look like.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the alien stories.
Yeah.
uh
Or that's what
it's,
they look
we
like
have
in
to
that
take their word
context.
for it that alien grays actually look like that,
Yeah.
because I haven't seen them. The one in Area 51 they want to show us, I bet is a fake.
Yeah. 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 It
I mean,
seems
great
obvious.
movie makeup, seriously, but it's just, we're never going to believe you.
Right. Right.
We're never going to believe you, even if you say, yeah, it is. Like,
Well,
we're
and
not, we're not going to believe you.
you kind of don't know if what Ezekiel is seeing, whether that's an all the time or whether that's a contextualized
Yeah.
point of view that is a one time only, or maybe it's whenever they show up like that with that particular function, they take that form,
Yeah.
or do they have different forms for different functions? Gosh,
Well,
who knows?
yeah, or even the tradition may change based on um, who's seeing it, because the visions of Ezekiel and Daniel give way to late first century art called Merkabah mysticism, which is sort of the beginning of the Kabbalistic tradition. And
Hmm.
what it is, it's rabbis like Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Akiva,
Hmm.
which is of Bar Kokhba fame.
Hmm.
um, yeah, what they were trying to find out, they were trying to form a theology around how do we even approach the Merkabah? How do But the whole goal of Merkabah mysticism was, what can we do as pious Jews to hit a trigger where we can also see Ezekiel's vision?
Hmm.
So there's a ritual that probably gets involved with it,
Mm-hmm.
and they try it out here and there, but it gives way to but it gives way to the later Kabbalah tradition,
Sure.
and then even in the book of Sefer Yetzirah, who is a I think it's like the first proper Kabbalistic text. It's called the Book of Creation,
Hmm.
but supposedly there's a formula in there to for you to channel divine power in order to animate life, which also is how Rabbi Judah ben Low makes the Golem of Prague. If you ever read that story,
Hmm.
that's a fun one to tell. But
Okay.
but but yeah, but there's a lot of mysticism that comes into this.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
It's not like hard concrete laboratory rational stuff. Like, this is the weird stuff that makes religion interesting,
Sure.
right? And same thing with visions. Like, how do I know? How can I trust Ezekiel had that vision? He's just not making it up because he's just so distraught over being exiled to say, well, this is where faith comes in. You either take it or leave it.
Hmm.
It's kind of as simple as that.
Sure.
But that conversation, we don't really, yeah, but the part of mysticism we do not understand in the West, because we are so hard rationalists, and especially with the reformed, like, hard biblicist crowd.
Mm-hmm.
They primed us for not understanding this, so that way when the Puritans meet the Quakers or the Baptists meet the Pentecostals, it's a complete recoil and disgust,
Yeah.
because we just can't understand them, and they are at the other extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But they may take it too far themselves because they just want to self-indulge, or they
Sure.
think they're receiving stuff but they don't. um there's no real way to know. This is where faith comes in,
Yep. Yep.
right? This is where and it weirds each other out, and so this is why we can't have Christian unity after 2,000 years, because you're doing a weird thing. And of course both sides are pointing the finger, and it's like, no communion.
You're not invited to my house anymore.
Right. It's like, yeah, I love the Eucharist, I love being with Christians, but I don't really think the bread and the wine is actually the body and blood of Jesus. Like, oh well, how dare you
Yep.
divide the body of Christ over this given we have. How dare you?
Yep.
Split, split, you
Yep.
know.
Yep. Yep.
Like, if the Catholics could just lighten up, if the
Well,
Orthodox could just lighten up, the highest Sophia may have still been a church.
well, okay. So I took us down a long rabbit trail. Sorry.
Indeed, indeed. That's great. I love these chats. But to tie this all back to angels, is that there are different angels that exist in the
Yeah.
in the text. Although they're treated as given, they have special role. They have different roles, jobs, etc.
Right.
Right. So now, to quote Heiser, so what can we glean from all of this so far? Because we just spent the last section of our study just defining terms
Mm-hmm.
as exhaustively as possible, and I'm so glad to be out of that woods. Believe me.
Mm.
Because, like, now we can actually start applying this stuff, but Heiser had to lay the groundwork first.
Sure.
Okay? So he says, an accurate understanding of how members of the heavenly host serve God must derive from the biblical text. Our goal is to build upon our earlier survey of relevant terms, beginning with some general observations about the abilities of members of the heavenly host. As these beings discussed are spiritual by nature, they operate in the unseen realm and are part of Yahweh's court. There are different categories of these Elohim that supposedly fit into a larger cosmological. That's an embarrassing typo. Cosmological hierarchy. What more can we learn about them? And so questions come up like this: is that, well, are they eternal? Because clearly they're not material beings like humans. Like, so is there an eternal aspect to them? Are they forces, abstractions of nature, or intangibles, or are they persons? Right? Do they have limitations? Like, what are the bounds of their operation? And do they possess free will? The Calvinists will enjoy this one. So, are they eternal? Right? So, one thing to understand about eternality is that we often think of it linearly, right? It's that you don't have a beginning, right? Now,
Hmm.
but if you do have a beginning, that makes you non eternal, right? But then what happens is that, well, even if you had an origin point, you can still be eternal because you were begotten and then you never die, right?
Hmm.
And this is a quasi unitary, biblical Unitarian view of Jesus, is that Jesus is eternal because now he's been raised from the dead, even though Jesus had a beginning, according to them. Or same thing with who is it? Same thing with like Arius, if he's pulling from Timaeus that Jesus is the demiurge. Like, well, the demiurge is begotten. He did not
Hmm.
pre-exist his birth, but yet he is an eternal
Right.
because he's ordering the cosmos, right?
Right.
For the absolute. So yeah, I know I keep pulling back to the Timaeus, but I it's so fundamental to
Okay.
understand literally anything going on theologically in the first century, and especially in the early Christendom. Like, you just cannot ignore it, even if you love it or hate it, Larry. And I know I'm singling you out because I know you're a Plato hater, but again, theology in the Roman world is not unaffected by the story of the Timaeus,
Yeah.
at least in some way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, Heiser asserts that Yahweh alone is eternal and has created all. So he is the one source. Everything, absolutely everything comes from him, right? And he uses Psalm 90, verse 2, Psalm 148, 1 to 5. So he's using the Psalms again to build his theology, including the other Elohim. Notice how the Elohim are under the category of created. It's like, okay, so at what point in time were the other Elohim created? Because if you look at it cyclically, all these other Elohim are derivative from the one, but they all are there eternally because it's in a loop. Or they are outside the loop that is in the material world, right? The loop, and by loop, I mean the loop of time in a cyclical nation. But if we look at time linearly, there's a beginning and an end point, right?
Yeah.
So if
Well,
we
no, no, no. Not, there's not necessarily an end. There is a beginning, yes, but there's not necessarily an end. It depends upon uh, what you mean and who you are. So I will say eternal for Yahweh is eternal with no beginning and no end,
yes,
standing outside of a chronological time uh, structure. But within the time structure, time being also a created thing, if we can go that route. Um,
time is created, yes.
sure. So then it has a point of creation, but it does not necessarily need an ending point. Although things within that timeline, you start at a point, draw a timeline out, go infinitely, and but anywhere on that timeline, things can end. They can
Yes,
be obliterated.
yes. Thank you for helping clarify that, Larry, because I actually could not have worded it better.
I just came
Because
out of a discussion with Claude around uh, you know, uh, circularity, toroidal, various geometric views, and it can. And I have yet to verify why, but it tried to say that the helix was the better representation, and then it even backed out of that and said, no, no, it's a straight shot timeline from a starting point off into eternity.
Right.
So, for what
Yeah.
it's worth.
Yeah. So and to separate the aesthetic and noetic realms where the stuff will where what you just described will operate, the aesthetic is the world of the senses,
Hmm.
right? And that's what's considered material reality, is that we can touch it, we can see it, um, we can feel it around us. That's material reality. That is creation. I like it occupies space and time,
Hmm.
right? Now the noetic realm, which is the realm of the mind, right?
Hmm.
It does not occupy space, and it does not necessarily occupy time, right?
Could be,
Because that thought probably could have always been there. but
maybe.
but it's just whenever there's motion, you are in material reality. If there is no motion, you are outside of material reality. And this is where you get the idea of the static, to put it into Thomist terms, I think is that you have actuality and potentiality, or actus purus, right? Is that yeah, Yahweh the God, or the ultimate God, is pure act. Like he doesn't like he cannot move, he cannot interact with material reality, because that would be a violation of his nature, which is potentiality, right? That it's the world of becoming, right? Yeah, you can't become, because that violates immutability. And so there has to be a second that comes out of him, which is pure act and potentiality.
Sidebar margin for anyone who's listening who might be a software engineer. This is exactly what object-oriented programming is all about. It's you start with various classes that are what we refer to as immutable. In other words, think of it as a blueprint from which you create uh, things that are active. So you have a blueprint in memory, and from the blueprint you create an actionable thing that's capable of carrying out computation. But when you create it, the thing that it is created from doesn't necessarily have everything that it needs to become a an active computational thing. So what you have to do is you have to decorate it. You have to give it additional parts and pieces to where it can then uh, um, become an active computing element within the software system. And then once you have that, then you can carry out computation. But the interesting part of that is that you can then use it as a model. So it occupies a dual role. The first role is it's coming from an immutable blueprint object. We call it a class, and then it becomes an object, which is the computational thing created from the class, and then you can use the object itself to create more, or you can use it as a class, not just a computational object, but you can also use it as a class, and you can keep going in what we refer to as abstraction or as specialization. So from a software engineer's point of view, the the one and the demiurge make complete sense in a software sphere. Not that I'm trying to turn that into theology. I'm just for all of my engineering friends who might be out there, you can hear this and you can kind of try and connect the dots back to ancient Greece and Rome as to how they thought and understand that this is exactly the model and the framework where your software engineering skills are born.
Excellent. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
So, so when were the Elohim created, right? So you have Job 38:7, Isaiah 14:12, Genesis 2:1, Nehemiah 9:6, Psalm 33:6. All attest that these other heavenly ones are having a beginning and are therefore not eternal, right? Because this is, yeah, some preachers use the term eternity past to sort of help give us an idea about creation. But it's that, yeah, because time doesn't exist until God creates it, right? As soon as
Hmm.
chaos is beginning to be ordered, there is timelessness, right? And so out of that timelessness begot time by the prime mover. If that makes sense.
Sure.
I feel I'm losing people, but it's again, read Timaeus, everything will make sense. So they are also not immortal, as Psalm 82 suggests that these other Elohim of the heavenly court can die. That's where you have the Elohim saying that you will die like one of the princes. That suggests that these other Elohim in the heavenly court can die,
Right.
taken literally in the text, right?
Right.
Now, Targum Yonatan, who this is, yeah, that this Targum is a rabbinic commentary on the text of Scripture, and it's tied to Yonatan ben Uziel, who is a student of Hillel, which is a first century BC rabbi.
Right.
Yeah, so and we actually can learn a lot from his Targum. But Yonatan says here, and the Lord said to the angels who ministered before him, who had been created in the second day of the creation of the world, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl which are in the atmosphere of heaven, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every reptile creeping upon the earth. The second day of creation is when the heavens were ordered and separate from the waters. So these Elohim are heavenly beings, so when heaven begins to be ordered, that's when they come into the picture. And then that sets them up. So when Yahweh finishes and gets to Genesis 1:26 and says, let us, that us are these angels from when the heavens were created on day two.
So let's be very clear here. Ordered and material creation, or even immaterial creation of immaterial beings, is not necessarily what's going on in Genesis at all. That is another view. So, thought experiment, right? The thought experiment is that nothing in that is mentioned in Genesis is being materially created, not even immaterial beings, but they are being ordered, which to an A and E mind is the moment of creation in the sense that you're not, you don't matter until you have a job. When you have a job, then you matter. And it's the when do I matter is when I'm created. So prior to that, I'm chaos. Not I'm not fitting in to the order that God has. So the alternate view to Genesis is an ancient Near Eastern view of functional ordering rather than material ex nihilo creation. So to say that these beings are created on day two of Genesis 1 from an A&E point of view, and another thought experiment point of view is to say that it's not that they didn't exist, it's that they are chaotic. And suddenly they're given position, they're given order. And
Could
the,
be.
yeah,
It very well could be because, but also at the same time, is you have people believing that Genesis 1 is material creation.
yeah, of course,
You
exactly.
do have people like that. We can't discount that at all.
No,
But not that they're idiots, but it's that that's how they understand the text.
yep,
It's like,
it's how
I
they've
mean,
been
how do
taught.
we understand the text? Like, yeah, that's the origin of man.
Hmm.
What else can we say? It happened in some time in the past.
Yep.
You know, on the on yeah,
But remember so
when dinosaurs ruled the disc.
yeah, so it's a thing that, and I think I posted a little bit about it in my spams of our Facebook Messenger chat earlier today, where I'm pointing out that you have threads of data that converge, and the convergence is the thing that makes the better argument. So if you have chains of evidence, in other words, you have things that you just link, and you say, well, this item depends upon that item for this item to be true. For item B to be true, item A has to be true. But if item A ever falls apart, then B is somehow orphaned and it now comes into question. Whereas a series of threads that are all converging on the same basic conclusion, those you can have a weak thread but a strong rope. So your argument doesn't necessarily fall apart. They're still converging, and you can honestly look at something and say it's weak. So for my friends out there who have been taught and think that Genesis 1 is material ex nihilo from nothing creation, that's fine. You can make that argument. The question is, when you set the arguments, the various ones, there are more than two, if you set them down next to one another as convergences rather than chains, and you follow them to their converging conclusions, what you're going to find is that one rope is going to be better than another rope. It doesn't make your rope untrue necessarily. It sets it in front of you and says, which rope do you think will actually hold the weight of your argument? And the one that best holds the weight of your argument is probably the one you want to choose, not simply, well, pastor said it over the pulpit, and this is what I've believed for 70 years. By God, I'm going to continue to believe that. Well, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. You can do that. But that doesn't make your argument better or worse. It just means that you're choosing to wall off from everything else.
Yeah.
I
Thank you, Larry.
love the
But yeah,
delayed
but
yeah.
it does break. But the reason for these deep dives on metaphysics is very important to this conversation because is that if we are to begin to build a cosmological model in the context of first century, where would we even begin to start?
Yes.
Right? Like, how would we understand what's being said here,
Yeah.
and how does that relate to us? And
And
of course,
Yonatan helps us, right?
yeah, yeah, because these because the story of God creating these heavenly ones or these angels
Hmm.
um mirrors a lot with how man is brought about,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And so of course there's different ways to take it. If you read, yeah, Heiser and Walton are more of the ancient Near Eastern. It's ordering material reality, or
Hmm.
it's the or Walton calls it the temple inauguration
Sure.
thing. But then there are other people, that aren't crazy Baptists. I ask me how I know. But there are well-meaning Christians who believe that this is, creation out of nothing, either
It,
ex nihilo or it's creation out of ordering, but it's at a fixed point in the
right,
linear timeline,
right.
right? Even the word timeline is linear,
Yep.
right? So yeah, so there are different views on which way you can approach this, however. But the Targum Yonatan, commenting on the Torah, says that all the heavenly creatures or the heavenly beings were created or ordered or begotten on the second day, which is when the heavens were ordered and they were
Hmm.
separate from the waters,
Right.
right?
Or even light from darkness. I heard one, who's the guy, uh, Heiser before he passed away, um, had this guy. He's now got a big following. Oh gosh, it is escaping me now. The
No,
but he told Heiser to his face, and it was Heiser, this guy, and Dr. Imes that was as a part of this kind of a three or four person discussion that was going on, and he made a quip to Dr. Mike. He says, "I can prove to you that they were created as a part of the light being separated from the darkness, that that's exactly where they were created." And I was like, "Well, okay." So which kind of fits with what it is that you're saying here about Yonatan,
yeah, you can tell them whatever helps you sleep at night, bud.
right?
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the important questions that gets asked about all of this is, can angels be eternal even if they have a beginning? Because if they have the potentiality to die, but they don't die, are they still eternal? Because it makes me think of like the elves in Lord of the Rings. It's like they are immortal until you kill them, which is a little
Until they're not.
ironic. Which is a little ironic, but it's just kind of funny to me.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. Are you looking at this linearly or cyclically? Again, what are they?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What substance? What are they? What is
Mm-hmm.
their makeup? What's the stuff that makes them who they are? Right. It doesn't necessarily have to be a material, but it's, what attributes do they have? What are their boundaries? What are their limitations? What do they look like?
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of these are questions that need to be asked about angels
Yep.
that the Bible almost just completely misses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because again, the Bible doesn't really go deep dive into, okay, well, this is an angel, this is what they do, this is how they are, this is where they come from. The Bible doesn't do that. It just tells a story.
Yeah. It doesn't hand you an angel's field manual and say bone up on your recognition of angels because you're going to spot these guys from time to time.
Exactly. It's like a divine safari.
Yeah.
If you look over your left side, you're going to see two different kinds of shemayim over here. Is like, oh, what about these shemayim? Oh, we don't talk about those ones. Those are
Yeah.
called watchers, and they deserve what they have. They're being skinned alive. It's like, well, they deserve it. Anyway, moving on.
Yep. All right. Next stop on the safari.
What did they do that was so bad? We're not here to talk about that. Please hold all questions.
Exactly.
Who's Lilith? Oh, I cracked myself up. Anyway,
Did you do another spelling thing?
where?
I don't know what you were talking about. I thought maybe you were spotting another typo.
Oh no, I was still running the joke
Ah,
past
ah,
you.
ah,
I
ah.
was I was still running the divine safari joke past
Lilith.
past my limit.
Yes.
So
Got it. Okay. I
yeah,
get it.
sorry. It was just still funny to me. But
Got it.
made the joke. It was funny. Moving on. All right. So Now, Heiser will assert, and this is a text directly from angels, that the members of the heavenly host also aren't everlasting or immortal, at least in terms of their unchangeable intrinsic attributes. Their immortality is dependent on God's will. Psalm 82, 6 through 7 is explicit proof of this limitation. The Elohim spirit brings in rebellion against Yahweh will have their existence terminated in God's own time and at God's discretion. These beings are gods, Elohim, sons of the Most High, all of you. Nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. The theological point is transparent. God is a single being whose existence is entirely under his own control.
Mm-hmm.
So, to further define this, so the other Elohim are contingent, which is being dependent on a prior factor of source for their existence, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're entirely dependent on Yahweh if they exist or not. And Heiser makes the point that Yahweh, because he's highest, he is dependent on himself for existence because he
Mm.
just is, and he is eternal, right? So that's the thing. So that's the differentiation between Yahweh and these other Elohim below him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, they are not little Yahwehs, although this gets disputed by the Metatron tradition, but it will be exclusive to Metatron because there's a tradition, I think it's in third Enoch, where you have this angelic being called Metatron, and Metatron's job, and he gets called explicitly the little Yahweh,
Mm.
and his job is to sit at the right hand of Yahweh's throne.
Mm.
But that all those attributes are exclusive to this Metatron. And I think part of the tradition is that Enoch the scribe transforms into this Metatron guy.
So
But I
maybe
have
to
to but check me on that. I have to go read the text again.
sure.
Um but you have this tradition of the little Yahweh thing. I just thought that was interesting or relevant, but again the tradition changes every time someone touches it. So
Yeah. So maybe to put
imagine,
it
imagine just a constant retcon every single time you pick up your comic book
uh
or your movie.
so if you put this into maybe more modern terms, um these are created beings that serve at the pleasure of until they don't. And
Yeah,
when the pleasure is no longer there, Yahweh reserves the right to just wipe them from existence.
exactly. Yeah, because they are dependent on Yahweh for existence, and there
Yeah.
are different ways to interpret that.
Yep.
But this is kind of what Heiser. This is the point Heiser is kind of going at. Is
Well,
that
that kind of makes sense for the angels that refuse worship, right?
oh
Because
yeah,
they're constantly living on some kind of a tightrope of don't worship me because if I receive your worship, I could be blotted out like an ink spot.
yep,
And I really don't want that to happen. So get on your feet and stop worshiping me, worship Yahweh.
yeah, indeed. Right. So to continue with this final paragraph, I know we stopped off. So they are not little Yahwehs, and so do not possess the attributes that makes Yahweh unique among the Elohim. They aren't omnigods,
Yep.
right? They have limitations, and we see this in either nationality, purpose, form, etc.
Right.
Right. So this is where you have the Elohim is an umbrella, and you have all these different types of Elohim that are underneath that umbrella that make up the heavens in this system, with
Right.
Yahweh at the top, like the star on a Christmas tree or the cherry on your Sunday.
Right. And the
Ah,
angels are the sprinkles.
sprinkle. Good one. All right. So using the conciliar, which is the divine council, not church councils,
Yeah.
interpretations of Genesis 1:26, humanity and the heavenly ones share the attribute of imaging or reflecting Yahweh. And that's another embarrassing typo because I type fast. Like I'm getting sausage fingers in my old age of 30. Okay, so Heiser explains that they're like God and like us. Think about these attributes that we share with our Creator: intelligence, creativity, emotions, rationality, and volition. Our fellow imagers, members of the heavenly host, have them as well because they are also his imagers. Now, this makes me think that Heiser really cut himself off from some good material because without using the Deuterocanon, that unlocks all the lore we get about Raphael, not the Ninja Turtle, but Raphael being the angel that helps Tobias,
Huh.
because um because Raphael, meaning Yahweh, meaning God heals, the
Yeah,
healer
yeah.
of God, or the healing power of God.
Right, right.
Um, he A lot of these things are on display in the story with of Raphael. Like Raphael has to hide his identity. He has to look out for the safety of Tobias. He's teaching Tobias how to fight a demon
Mm.
basically, and and he becomes a mentor, right? If we look at it in story terms, he's the mentor that you know he's the mentor that guides the main character through the story.
So he's Clarence.
In a way, yeah. Those of you who don't know, that's a reference from It's a Wonderful Life. It's Clarence the Angel.
Yeah, exactly.
Guides guides Jimmy Stewart through his depressive episode.
Exactly. Exactly. Only, only, only this one's better. Raphael is not Clarence.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just and it makes me kind of mad. It's that why is like you because you just want, cool points with Protestants. Like you're cutting yourself off from some really good angel content right here that plays right into the ancient Near Eastern stuff you keep harping about.
Yeah, yeah,
Is that well, no, we're just gonna miss the opportunity by.
yeah. Well, d doesn't the first Enoch material also get in the boat with this stuff?
I'm sorry.
Doesn't the first Enoch material, you've got the four together. You've got Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and
Raphael.
I guess it is Raphael, isn't it?
Yeah, Raphael's up there with the archangels.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's the four of them together doing their thing.
Oh yeah, and you get angelology and demonology in First Enoch, where all these beings are named,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they all get names and they all get purposes. We all know what they do. What Semiazo was doing.
Yeah, they
And
all
then
get
of
really
course,
fleshed out.
yeah, and of course, even in the Enochian or even in Jubilees,
Mm,
you have more of that fleshing because we know the Enochian writer and the Jubilees writer are talking to each other because they're both familiar with that Watcher tradition,
yep, yep,
right?
yep.
So what that does is in that tradition that we ascribe to non-Jerusalem temple solar calendar Jewry post in the Second Temple era, they have a very significant position on this matter, right? And because of their apocalypticism, that sort of gives them the access code to all the angels and everything, and how to understand how the cosmos works, and is able to explain that to us from their end of things, as opposed to Jerusalem, which is too concerned with either kissing up to the Romans or um,
Infighting.
legalizing ourselves, like every aspect of our day,
Hmm. Yep, yep,
so we don't go into exile again.
yep, yep, yep.
Right. So. It, again, the picture is very complex. The Second Temple Jewish picture is very complex.
Yes, it is.
So, and this is part of that. And this is part of that complexity because I think Tobit is actually one of the books that may have had a Hebrew original.
Mm,
I
I
remember
have.
reading there was a scholar who wrote who there's a scholar who was looking into it and did a textual analysis, and it's that looking at the Dead Sea Scrolls, it's possible that because there's actually a few of the deuterocanonical books, like three or four of them, that possibly have a Hebrew original,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
Tobit was one of them.
mm,
And plus, even being on the timeline where it is, like the 3 to 200s of it being written,
mm-hmm,
is that this is well within that Second Temple literature tradition.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting is if you haven't read it, Tobit is actually a Jew from the Assyrian captivity. He's not from Babylon.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a Jew in the Assyrian captivity.
Yeah, is which parable or saying is it that Jesus uses that we think comes out of Tobit?
Oh, it's about the seven husbands.
That's right. It's the seven husbands and the last one dies. Whose wife is she?
Yeah,
Yeah. Which would
exactly.
make an interesting thing if Tobit is in Hebrew a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls as old as it is, then it's running around in that in that uh, um, audience mind, and Jesus is taking advantage of that. Not
Yeah,
necessarily calling it true, he's just taking advantage of it.
right. Because even there's Christians who will use like, oh, when Jesus appeals to Adam and Eve, like God in the beginning, God made one man, one woman,
Hmm.
and so they say that, oh, Jesus believes in a historical Adam, which is a
Right.
bit racing to the conclusion. It's just Jesus is using the story to make a point,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
Because given his background is that he is active in debates over halacha with the Pharisees.
Hmm.
Because when the Pharisees come up to a question like that, because oh, we want to stump him, it's like, here, what is your halachic opinion on this woman who got married to seven husbands, but they all died? Whose husband is she, right?
Hmm.
And so even if they were trying to trap him, or being disingenuous about the questions, Jesus still gave his answer because they asked him his halakhic opinion on the matter, right?
Exactly.
And so,
And
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 Jesus,
nobody in the frame has to believe the story is even close to being true.
well, yeah, well, that's not the point.
Exactly.
It's just what do you do in that legal? What does the Sanhedrin rule in that legal situation?
Uh-huh. Here's
Because
my
they have
hypothetical.
literally nothing else to do with their day.
Yeah, yeah. Here's my hypothetical. Run with it.
Yeah, and it's rabbinic speculation.
Exactly.
So,
Anyway,
but
meanwhile, back at the slide.
yeah. Meanwhile, back to the slide, but that was really good because yeah, it's just Heiser, what are you doing, bud?
Yeah.
It's like you could have had a little bit more content that could have helped sailed you over, but it's
I'm a
not.
little I'm a little surprised that he even goes down the avenue of attributes that we share with our creator, and then gives the enumerated list when he did such a great job of uh, demolishing that back in Unseen Realm. We're
Mm-hmm,
not attributes. We're function. We're purpose.
mm-hmm.
Neat. Okay, so now its attributes are on again, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like we're back in the loop. We're back in the
Exactly.
loop. We got to get out of the loop.
Yeah. But it's
I
fine. He's making his point.
it's just I think a lot of this dancing around comes from like this fear that is that I don't want to come off as sounding polytheist or pagan.
Yeah. Well,
Because essentially, if we follow this to its logical extension, taking his argument is like even if there's more than one Elohim, you are now dealing with a polytheist cosmos. Period. Full stop.
mm-hmm.
You have a polytheist cosmos,
Yeah.
but Christian doctrine dictates that's all wrong. Our cosmos is there is one God person up there until Jesus, and then that's it, right?
Yep.
However, you believe Jesus comes about is irrelevant. But the thing is, you have it. Yeah, it's called an exclusive. It gets called exclusive monotheism
Mm-hmm.
by that Greer fellow who wrote A World Full of Gods. I highly recommend that book if anyone wants to understand how polytheism works.
Mm,
Like if you want polytheist apologetics, that is a great book to get
mm.
because he really leaves no stone unturned. It was really eye opening and informative. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, is that okay? Well, if there's all these different Elohim and so this is where Heiser gets in trouble with henotheism bit, and so
Right.
he's struggling to really define his terms because he can't just go like Paul Frederickson full way and just say, yeah, all gods existed in antiquity,
Mm-hmm.
like to the ancient mind, like all the gods exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all exist. Yahweh's up there with Zeus and Ares and all the other gods. Like, yeah, they're all up there.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have their dominions over all of you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know and we get that because Yahweh does deal with the gods of other nations.
Yeah.
It's just it
Absolutely.
just it's just where does that hierarchy happen? Because
Mm-hmm.
we are told that Yahweh was the top god since creation. But then is that, well, where do all these other gods come from?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's Tower of Babel. Oh, that's the Watcher story. Oh, that's delusions of man. We get that, like those are kind of the only places we can go because we can't just admit it's like the Judeo-Christian tradition has a busy cosmos.
Yeah.
Full
Yeah.
stop.
And I think that's
But
been
we
one of the,
can't admit that.
well,
We will die before we admit something like that.
yeah. And I don't know by what means that it happened, certainly personally for me, but there was a place where I finally, and I guess it's because of my Pentecostal upbringing that I was open to the idea that, oh, these aren't man-made concoctions and myths. These are real entities. And having a mind that was already on a supernatural trajectory allowed me to bring that in rather quickly, rather than needing to be convinced. So for anyone who's listening, that you come from a background of, you know, God is the only one, and yes, angels are just some kind of heavenly errand boys doing some stuff in the margins, but God is the main show. That's true for as far as you can take it, but the reality is that if you were to back up 4,000 years ago and take a breath and participate in that society, you would be in the out crowd. The in crowd would be, yeah, there's a massively populated heavenly realm up there in the skies, and we have to deal with them. And they're dealing with us.
Well, yeah, because heaven and earth to the ancient mind were not that separate. Like the world was alive and mystical and weird, and magical things happened all the time where the gods intervened in the everyday.
Yeah,
Yeah, but because of where we are as Americans, we're an alien people to that mentality,
until we
which
get to
that thing is for
aliens.
yeah, which, thank goodness for Heiser and Walton trying to recover all of this
Hmm.
and trying to, get us to think about it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but to the ancient mind is that, it's like, yeah, the world is polytheist, that's fine. But to the Christian, oh my goodness, you
Hmm.
cannot. And so, and the thing is, that's why Heiser has to kind of run cover all the time that he's not a polytheist, even though, there's more than, even though he has a crowded Elohim universe.
Well, yeah, because he's got to pay the bills somehow. And
Exactly.
if
And
he ticks everybody off, who's gonna pay the bills?
well, it'll likely be like non-Christian academics, probably in religion departments, or those that are sympathetic to him if he can get allies. But honestly, it's like mainline Christendom in America is not
Yeah.
going to. Yeah, they're not going to meet him
No,
halfway.
which means that his audience is going to go down to how much is my university willing to pay me? And it's going to stay in the dusty guild ivory tower and never escape to come out here to to the raw royal masses.
Yeah,
So
and
again, thank God that he did what he did. Otherwise, you and I
absolutely
wouldn't be having this discussion.
no, not at all. Yeah, we became friends because of Dr. Heiser, and I'm very
Absolutely.
thankful for that.
Yeah,
So
all of us. All of us.
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, again, to hit this home is that while we are critical of Heiser, we love and appreciate this stuff,
Hmm.
and that's why we keep talking about it and harping on it because we needed this.
Hmm.
We needed this to help us recover this ancient Near Eastern mindset to get us to think about the Bible that way and all the theology that implies.
Yes.
But that does get you in trouble with the main line
Hmm.
because they're on Rome's program.
Yep.
Get mad all you want. It's a Roman produced theology. Even if you're a Protestant,
Yep.
that's you've been taught in that stream.
Yeah, which is why I have come to have a poor taste in my mouth for the Greco-Roman impact on the modern church that has built an edifice that we cling to without even understanding why we're clinging to it, other than it's just our emotional uh, addiction. I don't know any other way to put it. We're addicted to it.
Yeah, and this is why Relera writing Lamb of the Free
Oh boy,
drops
did he.
drops a grenade down the stairway to blow up literally all of Western Christendom with his Jewish perspective
Yes,
on how it's especially as something so central as the atonement,
I know.
and then just to completely just rug pull penal sub for a covenantal um, new creation view.
Yeah, I know he's yelling catch as he's throwing the grenade.
Oh yeah. Well, him and NT Wright too, because
Yeah,
NT Wright pushes the new creation thing because he doesn't like penal sub either.
right, right.
Um, yeah, but again, like the theological richness of those ideas that are offered
Hmm.
through that, but it's getting back to the religion and the culture of the era
Hmm.
when these texts were written.
Hmm.
Because
Mind
even
of
like
an
with
ancient
Paul,
Israelite.
because even like with Paul, how are we supposed to really understand Paul if we don't know his theological background?
Yeah, if you can't get in Paul's head, don't bother reading Paul's words.
Exactly. And this is where,
And
well, yeah,
well,
and this is where that debate comes is like, well, is Paul more Jewish? Is he more Hellenic? Where is he getting this from? Is it from special revelation, or is it even inspired? Because there's points where he says, I don't write this by inspiration.
hmm.
Um, yeah, what was it like First Corinthians 7? He says, I write this not by inspiration, but by permission. So it's like, okay, well, what point does it stop? And
Yeah,
it becomes
yeah.
inspiration again. It's like so yeah. So also, it's just trying to get into the head of the ancients, and understanding this angels thing is where we're at. But we're missing a lot of crucial information because we're only limited to the 66 book canon.
Yeah, so for those that are listening later on YouTube once it gets posted, um, the question might be now arising in your mind of, well, why does any of this matter? Well, why it matters is it's building a contextual framework in your mind so that you know the stew that you're throwing the meat into. You want the meat, but the meat is living in a stew. It's being flavored by that stew and the veggies and the gravies and the spices and everything that are in there. It's not just the meat, it's the entire stew. So if you want to enjoy the meat as it was in the first century, you're going to have to learn what all the components of the stew are so that you can enjoy it for what it is. Otherwise, you're just eating, dried beef jerky.
Exactly. Exactly. Back to the slide.
Now,
All right. So our embodiment naturally means we live with significant limitations that unembodied intelligent beings don't. Okay. This is why it takes 5 pages for him to just make the simplest point. It's like we are in material reality. We have limitations. I can't fly. I can't morph through walls. That's why X-Men are so cool, right? But angels can do that
hmm
because they are immaterial. They are in the God realm. So, but we both image the divine, right?
hmm
Okay. Because of what happened in Eden, our lifespans are severely curtailed. We die after a brief existence in the world God made for us. It is only at that point that we experience the presence of God, presuming that we are part of his family through redemptive grace. We are thus far less intelligent, creative, and wise than the members of the spiritual world. We simply do not know what they have learned through access to God in lifespans of many aeons. But what they are and know is part of our own destiny in Christ.
I will know even as I am also known.
Yeah, and it said, the Holy Spirit will lead you into all truth and
Yep,
things like that.
yep, yep.
But it's that, yeah, we are different from angels. If you get nothing else from this book, it's that humans are different than angels.
hmm
I think we're on the last slide here for the night.
Okay.
All right, so being part of the divine council trademark, what do the heavenly ones do? And so Heiser dips into his one of his all-time favorite verses, 1 Kings 22,
hmm
to overanalyze it again for the umpteenth time. Also, if you read The Unseen Realm, a lot of this is going to be familiar to you. Um, so the heavenly ones of the council are asked to offer ideas on how to deal with King Ahab. Now, this does not affect God's sovereignty or decretive will, but just allows others to participate in its execution. Now, if the deception of Ahab was a bad idea, we can surmise that Yahweh would just ask for another idea or how they would do it, or he would do it himself. Right? This is
hmm
this is consulting the um the council. Right
Yep.
now, Now, again, what if from the open theist angle, I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but that Yahweh is genuinely curious and is stumped, or he asks and needs the council for help in addressing this issue?
Hmm.
Just what if? Because that is a way you can take this text, right?
Yeah. If sure. Yeah, if you just want to have a thought experiment. I mean, if that's the best uh, that a person's frame can allow them is to just say, okay, it's a thought experiment. Let me think that through
Yeah. Unless you
without
aren't,
re
unless
without
you are,
reaching.
unless you are an open theist
Well,
and
yeah,
this is how you
exactly.
read the text.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I admit myself, I am sympathetic to open theism because
Hmm.
that's kind of what we see in the text. However, it's that the point is that Yahweh wanted to consult the council on this matter,
Hmm.
and that helps inform what the purpose of these heavenly ones are in the council to advise Yahweh because he asked them, "What should I do to Ahab?"
Hmm.
Right? He offered it to them.
Hmm.
It's like, does anyone have an idea of what to do with Ahab? And then one of these Elohim in the council speak up and say, "Hey, I got an idea. I'm going to go be a deceiving spirit, or I'm going to be a deceiving ruah." If you remember the ruah discussion, I'm going to
Hmm.
be a deceiving ruah in the mind of Ahab and in his prophets.
Yep.
And he always says, "That's a great idea. Go do it." Boom, stamp approved. Go.
Yep. Yeah,
You know.
you've got your mission parameters. You've got your limitations, what you can and cannot do.
Yeah, because
Now
also we
go get
have
it
to under
done.
yeah, because we also have to understand the context of monarchy and kingship, right? Because Yahweh can consult his court and his council at however much he wants, but he is the sovereign of that council, and his yea is yea, his nay is nay.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, and the other
and
thing to point out about that council is that it is so and here's a position that I take personally. I'm not asking anybody else to take it, is that the council is not entirely the good guys. It involves the bad guys too. For me, this is the separation of the light and the dark. It's God doesn't just step in and obliterate the dark. He sequesters them. He puts them in a boundary, which is a part of the ordering, and then he takes advantage of them. And if you want to believe that the Hasatan of Job chapter 2, I think it's 2, or is it 1? Anyway, the Hasatan of the book of Job, if you want to believe that that is a bad guy, which I don't think there's evidence one way or the other that he's good or bad. He's just that he has his job and he does his job. And he's a little bit mouthy about it, which kind of leads you down, I think, the trail of, okay, he's got a mouth on him. He's not exactly uh, a cheerleader for Yahweh. But the point is that then you also have Satan, specifically Jesus saying Satan is asked to sift Peter like wheat. Again, what you find is that Satan has access to Yahweh.
oh
The
yeah,
bad guys have access. So this scene that is being portrayed here in First Kings, which is Micaiah speaking, the scene isn't just the council in the as though the council is nothing but good guys. The council apparently can be bad guys too. So you've got a spirit that says, well, I'm going to be a lying spirit. So is he describing what he's going to do, or is he describing his nature and character? And Yahweh is acknowledging his nature and his character and saying, okay, I can use that. Go do it.
well, Satan is also God's personal prosecution lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
at the same time, but the picture gets complicated because it's that, well, even Mastema, who is the overseer of the spirits of the Watchers on Earth in Jubilees, is that he's not necessarily, he is a part of the council,
Right.
right? He just gets sent to do a job. It's like, okay, it's like, fine, 1/10 of you will be on Earth ruled by Mastema, and
Hmm.
and that will be your punishment, right?
Yeah.
So and so that's where they explain where evil spirits come from.
Yeah,
But
but
then,
kind of the
yeah,
point that we're driving at is yeah, and I think what you're saying is we don't actually know whether Mastema is a good guy or a bad guy.
Again, it's just a given
Hmm.
for the story. Yeah, it's just kind of a given. We're not really given an autistic mechanical, you know, like a stat sheet on Mastema.
Yeah.
We have to develop our own stat sheet on Mastema.
Uh-huh.
That's why we have to
Yeah,
do research, and that's why we have the um, Vander Torn's dictionary and Gustav Anderson's Dictionary of Angels and stuff. And
sure.
we have all these texts together, to try to figure out, as the tradition progresses through time, how does, how did the mechanics change?
Well,
If
and for
or,
those who are listening again, who are, listening to all of this and going, gee, why? Um, Even Paul says we're not ignorant of these dark forces and how they work. Well, why is Paul not ignorant? Well, because Paul reads books. And because he reads books and because he's trained and exercised and he's read to a wider scope than just, 39 books in the Old Testament, he has some he, people say, well, this is where I always get into people telling me, well, why do I need to know all of this stuff? I've got the Holy Spirit. I'm sorry, it's not auto magic. You don't just understand with your tiny high school education in the 20th or 21st century, uh, you know, high school environment or even a college environment. You don't just automatically know what all of this is, like guys like Paul or Moses or whoever is doing the writing. You don't know it like they know it. So they're writing within a context, within a knowledge base. Jesus is learning from a knowledge base. You say, well, it's not important. Well, it seemed pretty important to Jesus for getting the mind of his Father that he received perfectly, that it comes out of something. It didn't just materialize in his head and he just kind of woke up like a computer being flipped on. And suddenly the hard drive loads and there's Jesus going, oh, I get it now. I was wondering what I was supposed to do for the next 3.5 years. Now I got it. I got it. It's not how it works, ever.
no, no,
But that's how we assume. We do that as really infantile minded people in Christianity and scripture. We think that somehow it just arrives by, oh, well, the Spirit was going to reveal it to me. No. Yes, but no. The Spirit's going to use the field of information that is in front of your mind that you're exercised in, and He's going to help you by building the mind of Christ in you out of all of that raw material that is surrounding you in a way that is not you deciding how to assemble that raw material. It's Him putting that raw material together, building and renewing the mind of Christ in you. And then, oh, by the way, knitting you together with other Christians who he's doing the same thing with them so that you come to the maturity of the body of Christ for your particular generation. And then you have to keep rinsing and repeating because y'all keep dying and others keep getting born, and so they need to be born again too. And so they need to move along this I don't know, assembly line, conveyor belt of time to receive the mind of Christ, just like their forefathers did.
right, indeed.
So the point of all of that is this is kind of the backdrop of why all of this stuff is important. I don't think it's a matter of, gee, I can, I've lived my life so far without this. I think I can just go on without it. Yeah, you can. Of course you can. Nobody's telling you that you can't. The question is what will be the quality of your going on with or without the knowledge environment that formed the mind of Jesus? How can you ever hope to have some measure and slice of his mind operating in you if you don't know what he knew?
Exactly. And if you'd like to read more about that, go see Larry Ricks' Substack or his new book out, Noose, on his
Yep,
Amazon store,
Noose will tell you.
where he
And
does a
Noose
deep
is,
dive into the mind of Christ,
yeah, absolutely.
and how it comes to you. See, shameless plug for you, Larry.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Okay.
Right. So one of these terms that keeps coming up to tie into what you're saying and coming back to our slide here is that when we understand now, again, Americans aren't primed for this,
Yep.
but when you look at the heavens in a monarchical way, one of the biggest quotes from Cicero writing in on the nature of the gods, being a Stoic philosopher himself in that tradition, he notes that when he talks about Jupiter, it's that the cosmos is ruled by his nod, which is a relevant point because it's that everything comes back to him. It's the divine say so
Mm-hmm.
on everything, on how the world is ordered, on what God does, what tasks happen, what goes on among the mortals. It's all by him. And I think this is somehow, I should read more. Pardon my ignorance, but this kind of ties to the concept of fate. It's that, if the high God who rules the heavens has fated you to do something, you should devote your life to that thing.
Yeah, one
And so,
could certainly make a case for that out of Paul, right? He feels an overwhelming unction. Woe to me if I do not obey. I'm in
right,
serious trouble if I
right,
turn my back on this calling.
right. And so to tie this back into the council is when Yahweh is sitting on the throne and he's making a judgment on what to do with Ahab. It is by his nod that
Hmm.
the spirit of deception, the air of deception goes to Ahab and his prophets,
Yeah.
right? So at the same time, it's that the heavenly one that was sent was not pre-programmed for the task, and God was not bound to do it. But would the plan succeed? That was the point of the approval.
Hmm.
Is that is that because Yahweh wants the task done? It's like, okay, well, what are you gonna do? It's like, I'm gonna go be a deceptive spirit in the mouth of Ahab and his prophets. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, that's a great plan. Go do it. Boom, done.
Yep.
Sent.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, so that's kind of the point of what's going on.
Yep.
Um, is that would the plan succeed? Now, if and then to tie this back is that if the plan would fail, you know, now I could say, no, it's not going to fail. Here's why, or no, I don't approve that plan. Anybody else? And
Hmm.
then another of the Elohim could stand up and say, I got an idea.
Yep.
Again, think of it like a boardroom,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the heavenly boardroom. Nah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, the heavens are corporatocratic. That's why Jehovah's Witnesses have timesheets. Exactly.
Oh man.
So one funny thing I'm going about with this is that a lot of it happens with God and his council. So Heiser makes an observation that Yahweh is seated in his council, which is a sign of his authority. Now the Ancient of Days in Daniel is also seated, which always gives the scene of a heavenly court, but also see Psalm 82. I'm gonna start to not quote Psalm 82 because he just mentions it so many times. I'm getting tired of Psalm 82. The seated one is the one to rule the council and make the final judgment. In classical theology, this is king of the gods language. Now, the council is also witness to the divine decree being proclaimed and executed, and they're all involved there. And it makes me think of this woodcut we have of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth in Parliament, and you see she's seated, and then you have all the rest of Parliament also seated in the council, but she is in the prominent position of ruling,
Mm-hmm.
as you see. And then it
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of that. Well, wait, it's not because that God presides over his council. That makes him a council president, and so maybe he got one of these student council president badges because he's fulfilling the same role. Think about it that way. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's like he's the CEO. The Elohim are the board of directors or the investors, you know, and that's how it's run.
So yeah, and I think we need to make a distinction between a direct nod and an indirect nod, because there is an indirect nod in Scripture, and that is where Yahweh commissions the watchers, specifically in Daniel, I think it is, where Daniel talks about by the decree of the watchers as he's talking to Nebuchadnezzar. So the decree is coming out of the watchers, but if anyone were to think, well, they've gone rogue, they're doing their own thing. No, the council, the watchers are operating within a commission. So there's a nod that is may not be directly given, but understand that it's indirectly given, and there is consequence if the if Yahweh is unhappy with the decree. And we never find in this case that Yahweh is unhappy with that decree. So we give it an implied or an indirect nod from Yahweh to the Watcher Council.
Right. Because there are times where he is disappointed, like when he regrets making man in Genesis 6.
Yeah.
But the decree went out and was executed
Yep.
all the same.
Yeah. The spirit
So
gets grieved, you know.
indeed,
I
yeah.
mean, just go down the bean row,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Indeed.
Sometimes
But
God
but
is not happy.
right. But yeah, but all of that to say, it's a context like this where he is sitting and reigning in his Merkabah, and the court of angels is all around him
Hmm.
for him to consult. He can just watch them. He can
Yeah.
interact with them at his pleasure. That's just how the cosmos is ruled. But we just don't get this picture because this is never talked about
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
It is
Well,
never discussed. It is never fleshed out. Well, I mean, Heiser's doing his part to try to flesh it out, but it's never addressed in satisfying detail to where we can actually build a competent, cohesive worldview out of it that will satisfy lore nerds, because a lot of it's just we just assume a lot.
and we get taught by our American Lockean, Jeffersonian, libertarian society to actually actively work against the model, such
Mm-hmm.
that when we finally butt heads with it, we don't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing we're doing is we're trying to turn the church into the United States of America, or the United States of Jesus, if you will. We
Right, and that's from my whole is Jesus a Republican questionnaire, because it hits so true.
hmm
It's such a relevant question,
hmm
because again, like the church we have is created from our context and our worldview, which is anti-monarchy.
Yeah.
And because we put away the Puritans and everything is democratized, everything is equal to us, we eschew hierarchy by nature.
hmm
because of John Locke. And so we're not going to understand a hierarchical system, probably outside of the family unit.
No,
But
we're
even
gonna.
that's not but even that's not a clean one for one.
Oh, just certainly not in
And
the
yeah,
21st century.
yeah, in our culture.
Yep.
Because we're very atomized and individualistic. It's that everything is so privatized. It's me to God, end of story. It's not it's
Mm-hmm.
no it's not it's not you to your family, to your church community, to your priest, to God. It's me to God. That's it.
Yep.
And not to say that God can't act that way, but you're missing out on how this was built.
Mm-hmm.
Because because I keep saying is that if you're doing Christianity by yourself, you're doing it wrong. You have to be in a faith community. You have to participate. You have to attend the liturgy. You have to participate in the potluck. You have to go to the Bible study night. It's
Yep.
you have to be in the community.
Yeah. Everything about it is participation.
Yeah, and that's the point. And we lost that, since 1971. See the bowling alone thesis.
Mm.
But it's yeah, it's just important is that we have to understand is that we have to get out of this bubble that hierarchy is bad,
Yeah. Yeah.
and God is a king,
Yeah.
nothing less.
Yeah.
You know,
And refuses to be treated in any other way. He
exactly
will actively fight against being viewed as Mr. President
right. Because
or Senator God.
yeah, that's a shirt. Um, but yeah, divine council president. Like you should make a pin that says that or something. Divine council president. That's Yahweh. But to bring the point home, it's that there is an order to things. There is a hierarchy to things, and Yahweh is the chief hierarch of not only the cosmos but of the council that runs the cosmos.
Hmm.
To ultimately make the point, and all these different Elohim look like Queen Elizabeth's parliament here.
Hmm.
Is that you have Queen Elizabeth at the top, and then everyone else is another Elohim.
Hmm.
Everyone else is another Elohim.
And they are not there arbitrarily.
Oh
Each,
no, they are
yeah,
designed to be there.
absolutely
They have a
for their
job there.
purpose. Yep,
They
they
have an
have a.
obligation there. In fact, they are created to be there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
right. And
Well, and it's a
so,
thing that we don't get about ourselves for sure. It came up today in the pre-church service Bible study that we were having. The guy that was leading it was complaining because he feels like he's constantly having to explain to family members and other people in general that church isn't a building. And the the shot back from myself and from another brother there that is, Mr. I won't say it, but the point is that the shot that we fired back well, that's, an ecclesia isn't the Kiwanis Club. It's a government. And you don't have to look any further for the proof. He was right in the middle of, I think it's Acts 17, where it talks about how behind the scenes of the English, the Greek uses the word ecclesia for the local, uh, what I forget which government it is. It's the Ephesians. Anyway, it it says that, Paul and the boys get drug off to the local ecclesia. And we both made the point that this is a word that gets papered over, squashed, and flattened in English as church. And we have lost touch with the fact that, we want to say, oh, ecclesia, it's the called out. Yeah, we're called out. What are we called to? What is the purpose? What's the functional purpose of an ecclesia? It's to govern. We are the earthly divine council in our sphere and in our realm, just like they are the council in their sphere and their realm. And we are born to that. We're created for that purpose. Just like you got done saying, they're created. They're not accidents. They aren't, just created randomly and happen to just, you know, slide into a hole someplace and go, oh, look, I fit here. That's not how this works at all, ever. So as an ecclesia, we we function in this too, but yet what we want to see ourselves as is, oh, I'm an individual. I happen to go to church because it has a great children's program. Or I'm a young person and I'm entertained and oh, there's lots of girls there, right? Whatever is floating our boat at the particular time, but it's all wrapped around ourselves. And it seems almost to a man that most of us are not taught we're a government. We need to act like one, be shaped like one, think like one. We're a council. Take your seat in the council, operate within your council, find out what your council position is. That's a part of growing up and maturing. Not just, well, I'm here because of the Wednesday night supper. I'm
Well, Larry, we're
hungry.
free in Christ, so I don't have to do with any hierarchy things. I'm
All
free.
right.
I have natural freedom in Christ, so I'm not
Yeah.
bound to any responsibilities.
I know it. I know it. Okay, you're the only exception to the rule.
We'll see what a mire this gets us stuck in.
Hmm.
You
It
know, so
does.
we have yeah. So in order to and it's just kind of funny because this context of the council like this, like you can easily see this in England.
Absolutely.
Like English Christianity should have no problem understanding a heavens like
Yep.
this.
Mike and I have a friend that Mike made first over in England, and I tell this fella all the time, you actually are better at realizing what the church is than I am as an American
Exactly. But
because
then,
you've been raised in a monarchy.
oh yeah. But then what happens is when you build a country that abolishes monarchy
Yep.
and everything's based on reason
Yep.
and it's, well, you could just do whatever you want.
Yep.
It's like, well, it's just a cosmic free for all.
Yep.
It's,
Yep.
it, yeah, liberalism is literally a religion of chaos and is
Exactly.
contrary to Christianity, in direct contrast to Christianity, but it also robs you of understanding how this cosmological model works as presented in the text of the Bible,
Exactly. Yep.
right?
Yep.
But I'm going to go ahead and close out my show.
Okay.
That's kind
I'll
of all I
stop the
got
I'll
tonight.
stop the recording.